Okay. So welcome to this tool in action session. I have 30 minutes to talk about how to test your awesome iOS mobile application. I'm Maxime David, so let's go straight to the agenda. So first, I will try to explain why this is a good idea to test your mobile application. And then we will see a demo application. Since we are going to write unit test and UI test, we need to have a sample application to run our test against it. Then we will have a live coding session about unit tests, both synchronous and asynchronous. Then we will see a UI test for user interface test. It's a live coding session too. And we will conclude by your question. So why this is a good idea to test your application? Well, everything you already know about testing your backend application, for example, is valid. So you just have to make it's exactly the same, plus some mobile specific constraints. For example, the Apple review process is long. So if you have a bug into your application, you have to fix it. You have to build your application. You have to upload a new build to iTunes Connect. You have to wait for this build to get validated. You have to create a new version. You have to submit it to Apple Review. You have to wait for 1 or 2 days, it depends. And then you have to release it. And you have again to wait like 1 or 2 hours to get your build propagated to all other Apple stores. And then the user has to install this update. So it's quite a long journey between the time you detect a bug and the time that it will be fixed in production. Another important thing is a bug. For example, you tap on a button and the app gets shut down immediately. It's not very nice for the user. And for example, if you are onto a website and you have a dead link, the browser does not shut down. So there is a difference between a mobile application and another application. Another thing is that UI elements can overlap to each other. For example, if you are tapping into text field, if a keyboard is appearing and you cannot dismiss it, if you have like a tab bar on underneath the keyboard, behind the keyboard, you can't access to other tabs. So the user is aware of other feature in your application, but he can't access it because the keyboard is not dismissed. So this will be fixed with some UI test. And if the user is not super happy, he can delete your application in an easy way. So these four constraints will I hope it will encourage you to make some UI test and unit test. So since we are going to write some unit and UI test, we need to have demo application to run our test against it. So it's named HashColor, and the aim is to generate a unique color scheme from a string via a hash. For example, I take MyDevoxx, I compute the hash, and we get as a result a color scheme. I will explain later how to get this color scheme. So let's go for a demo. So this is HashColor the application. So you have a text field here. So if I tap hello Devoxx, the SHA-1 is computed in real time. So if I add letters, the SHA-1 changes and the color scheme changes too. Here you have the color breakdown, so you can have a quick look at the color detail. And if you are happy with this hash, you can save it. So this is the first view, and the second tab is just the list of previously saved hash. So very simple app, just to make sure that unit testing and UI testing will be efficient. So let's start with unit testing. It's a built-in feature directly in XCode. You will run those tests through a new target, and it's based on the XCtest framework. And it's like more or less like JUnits. So you have the same kind of API. So assert true, assert false, assert equal, and so it's gonna be easy to try. And the main goal of unit test, of course, you know it's to validate the business logic. So given an input, does my function output the right value? So this is what we are going to try onto the app. So we'll check whether or not the transformation from the string to a color scheme is correct. So let's code. So the first thing to do is to add a new target. So file new target. Here I have iOS unit testing bundle. So okay. Let's make sure that the language is Swift and the target to be tested is the name of our application, here HashColor. As you noticed, a new folder has just appeared here, is HashColor test, with a new file here, and it's a sample test case. But one thing you have to do before is to go to Product, Scheme, Edit Scheme, Test, and make sure that gather coverage data is checked, because if it's not checked, we won't have the details of the coverage testing. So since it's a different target, we have to include our main target. So let's testable import HashColors and make sure that the first step example will run. So x asset true. And as you notice, there is a little checkbox just here. If you click on it, it just runs this test. So of course the test is a success since it's just an assertion. So we are going to test our main business object with this HashColor item. It takes a hash and it will transform this hash into colors. And the init method can throw two kind of errors. If the hash is nil, there is a hasherror.nil exception. And if the number of chars is not 40, it will throw an incorrect length. So we will make sure that this method are tested, because as you can see, the test coverage is working, but it indicates that this method is not tested. So let's go and let's test it. As you noticed, every method should begin with test, otherwise it won't be considered as a test. So test init nil. Sorry. So let's try to instantiate a new hash item with a hash to nil. It should throw an error, so let's e as HashColor item.hash error. And the catch, let's make sure that the error thrown is of the right type. So x assert equal e should be of type HashColor item.hash error.nil. Okay. To be complete, we need to catch all other error and make sure that if this kind of error are thrown, it will fail. And of course, we should fail just after this, because it should fail. It should go to the catch. So let's run it. The build succeed. And the test succeed. So now we can go back to our test here. You see that test init nil has been a success, and the coverage should have changed. So if we go here, okay, so this is green, but this other condition is not tested yet. So let's make it tested. So just have to copy and paste this. Test init incorrect length. The hash not a valid hash. And this time it should throw an error of type incorrect length. So let's run all the tests. You can run just one test by clicking just in front of the test, or all the test suite test case if you click on the very top of the class. So let's go back to our coverage, and we have 3 tests, all are passing, and this time this is correctly tested. Here, here, here. Okay, so now we know that if I init this HashColor item, everything is okay. But what is important is to check whether or not the deducted color from this hash are correct. So let's take this hash, for example. Test colors. Let hash string. We are going to take this hash because it's a simple one. Since the 6 first is A, B, 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 C, 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 D, 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 E, 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 it will be easy to get the color. So let's try to get that. Catch. Let's hash equal try HashColor item hash string, and if it's fail, it should if it catch an error, it should fail. So for every catch, it should fail. So let's check the colors. Sorry. Let's make sure that hash.getColor of 0 is A. And let's do that for the 5 colors. Let's run the tests. Oh yeah, thank you. Okay, the test succeed. So doing that, we know that if I construct a hash to color item, I know that the color will be correct. We can do the exact same test to check whether or not the size in the color scheme are correct, but we won't have the time, so let's stick to this. One other, those are synchronous tests. It means that every line is executed, but we do not wait for a callback or something. So let's make an asynchronous test. For example, we are going to test if the add a hash method is okay. So I have a network class here. So there's a struct resources which take 2 parameters, a URL and a parsing method. So the web service here will call, we take a resource as a parameter, and it will fetch the resource.url method, and it will execute the resource.parsingJSON method to get the value. So I have already a method to create resource for adding a hash. Let's make sure that we are not fetching our real backend, because it's a unit test, but it will actually call the URL. So we don't want to add a hash into our production. So let's make it local. And we can take the exact same hash string. And we can call our web service method. And the results. Let's say, for example, we just want to fail, okay? So let's run this test. the build succeed. And the test succeed. So there is a problem because I ask for fetching a URL. I ask for adding a hash, and when it came back, I want to make the test as a failure. But since our test is not waiting for the callback, it just ignores this line. So fortunately, XCTest has a built-in mechanism to fix this. It's called expect. So let's create an expectation. For example, add a hash. And the test will wait until this expectation is not fulfilled. So we can call, waits for expectation with a timeout, for example, 10 sec. And once we get the result, we can do expect.fulfill. And if I run it again, okay, this time the test is a failure because we have an expectation, we wait for it, but until it's fulfilled, we want to make the test fail. So let's make it pass. So we just want to check what the parse.json method do. It just returns the hash key for the JSON. Let's have a look at the JSON. It just success through hash directly the hash. So if we are going back to the test case, we can assert that the result is directly the hash. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so with this live coding session, we have seen both synchronous and asynchronous testing. So UI test is another kind of test, which is also built into XCode as a new target, and it's using the same framework, XCTest, with another framework which is called accessibility. And the main goal of the UI test is to interact with UI elements. For example, we want to check whether or not a button is hitable or not. Is it enabled? Can I click on it? And of course, we can validate scenario. For example, in our demo app, we can add a hash, see if the hash is on the list, or we can add a hash and see the color detail. So we are going to do that. So file, new, target, UI testing bundle. A new folder just appeared. HashColor test, so it's importing the exact same framework. I have a test example here. And the nice thing about UI test is the little Recode button here. So I can press on it. And this will launch the app as in a recording mode. So for example, I can click on color and go back here, and I stop the test. So let's have a look at this test. First, it creates a variable app, which is an application. Then is looking for the color 0 text, and we tap on it. Then is looking at the navigation bar for color detail, which is the name of the second view, and which is a button. There is a button named add a hash, and we tap on it. So if I replay this, So it clicks on color 0 and back to the main view. So this is cool. I would like to click on the color 4, for example. So of course it's not compulsory to click on the record button. I can edit the test as text, of course. I can click on color 4 and do exactly the same thing. So let's make a variable for it. Let's back button equal to this. Back button dot tap. Then I go to color 4 and back button dot tap. Okay, let's go. As you can see, the color 4 cannot be shown, but the framework will scroll down automatically and to click on it, and it will fail. Okay, so we will see why. But of course, we are not, here it's a demo, so I can have a look at my simulator, but if it's XCode server which runs the test automatically, you won't see what happened. So if you go to test here, test example as fail, tap a hash button as fail, and here there is a nice icon and there is a screenshot of what happened. So this is super convenient. So for example, here it tried to find the add a hash button, and the thank you. And the add a hash button is not present because the seg has not been performed. So let's see what happened. In my hash text table, should perform seg. It will perform the seg if the current color is not nil and if the identifier is view color detail. So I may have an idea of what happened. Let's go to the storyboard. So this is the transition name. Let's see. Oh, okay. It's not view color detail. It has some junk after. So let's make it save. What's this? And if we rerun the test, it should pass. So here in our test example, there is no explicit assertion. We are not using assert true, assert false, assert equals, but it's implicit because if it doesn't find the element, it will fail. So okay, color 4 is okay. We can do another test and a final one. For example, we can check if the save button is enabled or not, because if the hash is empty, we could not save an empty hash. So let's check for that. Test hash. I use the Recode button. So as you can see here, I cannot save the hash. So let's try to save one with O. Dismiss. So the save button is here. Let's make a variable for this, save btn, and we will assert that the save button that is enabled is false. So at first it's false, and then once you have just one char in it, it should be true. And of course we can tap on it. So it's possible to make specific assertion in those kind of tests. for here it's a nice idea to check if whether or not it's enabled or not. But for example, asserting if it's enabled and then tapping into it, it will fail if it's not enabled. So maybe this line is useless. Okay, so this test succeed. So here we have seen two kind of tests, UI and unit test. So now you can test your application. If you have any question, I'd be glad to try to answer. That's a good question. I've not tried this, but I think there is. I may assume that there is something to. So the question was how to handle push notification, or how to handle push notification directly in the app. How to check whether or not it has been correctly received. I've not tested it. The question was, for example, if I want to take a picture, you have a permission question like, would you allow me to access to your photo? This is something I have not tried, but I will check, and if you tweet me, I will answer with pleasure. Yes? Well, the nice thing with XC test, it's directly built in the Xcode, so it will evolve. I think it will evolve constantly with the future release of Xcode, and we are not sure that the third-party framework will be sustainable for a long time. So I would recommend the XC test. By the way, this code is available on my GitHub. I've made 3 different branches, one with no test, one with unit test, and one with both unit and UI test. So if you want to play with it, you can go. And the application is on the Apple Store, but it's not a big feature, but if you want to play with it, feel free. Okay, thank you.